Ebony, and I'm back with another video. And today is the day that I want to come on here and talk to you guys about what the Lord ministered to me to minister to you guys. And yeah, so y'all, as y'all know, I've been going through the word, and today it was placed in my heart to speak about the book of Micah. So in the book of Micah, I encourage y'all to read the entire chapter, but Micah was a prophet from God, and he was telling the city to turn from the evil, wicked ways and to turn their lives to God, but they wanted to do their own thing, and that was God's people. God's people wanted to do their own thing. They didn't want to listen to what Micah was telling them. They were just like, you know what? I'm about to keep doing what I'm doing. And then, you know, it was just a whole lot of injustice. It was a whole lot of corruption, idolatry, and just a whole lot of bad stuff, right? So when I look at the book of Micah, I always, well, even with every book, I always reflect back on my life and what God did for me. And just as the main verse or chapter I'm going to be speaking about is Micah 7. And Micah 7 is basically Micah realizing that he's not perfect, and that even though he's one of God's children, he's not perfect, but he still hold the burden of the people's sins on his back, because it's like, yeah, they're being judged, but he humbled himself to know, like, apart from God's mercy, I'm still a sinner as well. So even though Israel was being put to judgment, he always had in his heart that God wasn't going to leave them nor forsaking them or throw them down into destruction. He knew that God was still going to restore them in his perfect timing. So Micah didn't lose hope on Israel or the Lord. So when we piggyback, before God is about to bless you, and before he's going to level you up into who he always intended you to become, we all enter this world as sinners, okay? We all go through them dark times of not knowing who God truly is. And it sometimes well, for me, and maybe for you, take us going our own way, trying to do it our own way, bumping our heads multiple times to understand that God is the one and only true way to do the things that we always desire to have in our heart, to become who we always wanted to become in our heart, to have the things that our heart desires, that God always desired us to have. Because it's like, you got a counterfeit version and you got God's version. So God's version of things isn't always going to be easy to obtain, because you got to think about your character. You got to think about not having an idol in front of the Lord, and knowing that God is your foundation, and knowing that when you go through trials and tribulations, it's not for you to go back into bondage. It's for you to put your trust in the Lord and place all your burdens down on his feet, and trust and really, really understand who God is for you in that moment or that season of trial that you're going through. Knowing that it's not to punish you, but it's to open your eyes to see, open your ears to hear, open your mind to understand what the Lord is doing in your life and what he wants you to become. And when you understand that, that's God's way. But when you try to go your own way, it's a lot of short corners, it's a lot of deceiving, it's a lot of trickstery, it's a lot of bumping your head, it's a lot of failing, and it's a lot of destruction. You're just copying what you see that other people are succeeding in, because they don't follow God. You think that that's the way because they ain't following God, but they are wealthy and this, that, and the third. And when you don't understand that just because something looks successful, wealthy, and knowing that God ain't with them in that situation that they're in, but they're successful, understand that could be their way of destruction. Because at the end of the day, when you're not following God's way, you're heading to destruction, whether you want to believe it or not, okay? And God shows mercy and he shows grace. He doesn't want his people to be destroyed. I understand that everything is a learned lesson, you know, even for people who are in the dark and succeeding in life. You don't know the path they had to take. You don't know what God is doing in their path. You don't know what you really see that people show you. Only God. And when you're rocking with God, you don't have to worry about your foot slipping off the rock. Okay? When God is your rock and you trust in him, you can't be deceived. You cannot be destroyed. You cannot be left or abandoned by God, you know? And you have his protection from evilness, wickedness, and things like that when you trust and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you know that he saves you and he died on the cross for all your sins. And when Micah had this hope and just knew who God was and knew that he wasn't perfect and knew that he was just a sinner as the Israelites who were in sin, doing a whole bunch of stuff and about to go through judgment, he knew and he humbled himself knowing that he is a sinner and knowing that without God, he is nothing. So he humbled himself with the Israelites who's going through judgment. So later on in the chapter, I'm going to put up Micah 7 verse 7 because that's what stood out to me. Just knowing that, you know, I'm not perfect, knowing that I'm going to still put my trust in God because I know that he spoke through me for a reason in a season, and I know that it's to restore us, not to destroy us. So later on, Micah talks about how and what God is going to do for the Israelites, and the people who were surrounding, the nation surrounding the Israelites were making fun of Israel, was like, look, where's your God now? Look at y'all now. Y'all in destruction. Y'all look like y'all not prospering over here. You know, a whole lot of stuff. Like the people who wasn't with God or walking with God was making fun of the ones that was with God. But the fact that they were being corrupt, the fact that they had idolized things, and the fact that they weren't walking in God's path, they were still God's children. And God was going to put them through a trial, put them through a tribulation, put them through a season of redefining. And as they're being redefined, the people that's on the outside, like the nations, they didn't know what God was doing. They were just looking at what they saw, and it was like, look, I don't even follow God, and we over here prospering, we over here doing this, and we over here doing that. And later on, after God did what he needed to do in the Israelites to get them clean, to get them renewed, to get their eyes to be open, their ears to be open, their minds to be open, God showed the surrounding nations, this is my people. This is my people restored. This is my people who was once in the dark is now in the light. This is my people who was looking like this and now they look like this. You can tell when someone was in the dark, you could tell how they used to look. And when they're in the light walking with God, you could tell a new spirit on them. You could just see it on them. It's in them, you know? And this was what the surrounding nations were looking at. They were in awe. They were like shocked. Even Micah was telling them, like, you are going to see the people that you mocked, the people that you thought that was a joke, you're about to see the hand of God on them. They are about to be prosperous. They are about to be everything that you thought that they were never going to be because of the things that we're going through in that moment. And just reflecting back on our lives, your life, whatever the case may be, how God brought you out of certain things and how he's bringing you into this new. The new may be uncomfortable, but you have to understand that new is walking with God and surrender your life to him and following his ways, allowing him to speak through you, allowing him to work in you to get out the revelation that he's doing. So it's like the bigger picture. Like I always say, you gotta look at the bigger picture. You're not just going through what you're going through for no reason. There's somebody who is watching you, who made fun of you, who trying to figure out why you do things that you do, and trying to figure out who the God that you serve, that you turn from your wicked ways, that you don't hang with them no more, that you don't entertain certain things anymore. And these people are watching you, either clowning you or either they're like curious to figure out where and how this is going to end. And this is how the surrounding nations around Israel was like. You know, it's a whole lot of mocking, a whole lot of scoffing. You know what I'm saying? And when God said that he was going to do something, his promises was going to stand, his promises stand at the end of the day. they end up becoming who God always intended them to become. Meaning that that destruction, that judgment didn't last forever. It only lasted for a season to prune them, to take things out of them. And now that those things are pruned and taken out of them, they're able to be on top. They're able to get into the next level because now they know they can't do nothing without God. They know the situation they were in when they wasn't with God, and they know how that judgment, that trial, that tribulation that they had went through, how God was still with them and allowed them not to die, not to be led into destruction, but he was working and walking with them in that judgment. And he was seeing, God was seeing who was all around them, making fun of them, because he, like I always say, God will make your enemies your footstool. Okay, he will bring you out of something where you thought you could never get out of it, or people surrounding you thought you would never get out of it, and he will work on you in the private place, separate you from certain people, work on you in that private place, and for you to come out on top. Okay, like your old ways would die, the old you would die, like Lazarus. They thought he was dead, but then God came back and said, no, he's not dead. Brought him back up alive again, like Jesus. Jesus died, okay, but he came back a whole new person. Okay, he came back in spirit, refreshed, renewed. And that's just for us, for me, you know, like, it's not even just physical. Like for me, I was 80-some pounds, smoking heavy. Okay, you can just look at my first video and just like skinny, okay, skinny. Mind fried, okay, everything just all left out the door, and I was just suffering because of the addiction that I had, and I felt like I couldn't let it go. And now it's just like a new walk, a new talk, all because of the Lord Jesus Christ. It came all the honor, all the praise, and all the glory, because it was none of me. You know, I would never think that I'd be sitting on here and talking, because I never liked to talk for real. But it was always something that was deep down inside of me. But through them trials and tribulations, through judgment that I had to go through, and the humbling seasons that I had to go through, brought me up to this person that I am today. And God is continuously working on us. God is continuously working on me to become the best version of myself. But when, like I said, when you're in the dark and when you're going through certain things, and whatever the case may be, you cannot idolize, you cannot put nothing above God, because it would never work. Okay? It would never work. So, with that being said, just want to let y'all know, like, when you're going through these trials and tribulations, when you're going through judgment, or whatever it is in your life that you're going through that just don't make sense, understand that it's a lesson that's being taught to you, that God is teaching you what it's like to be with him, and what it's like to not be with him. First, you're going to know what it's like not to be with him, because, you know, you get what I'm saying? Like, you wouldn't be depressed, or whatever it is that you're feeling right now, whoever I'm speaking to. And when you go through your trials and tribulations, when you start asking God to remove people out of your life that should not be in your life, and they start dropping like flies, and then you go through this season where you're just by yourself, isolated, however it is for you, because everybody's journey is not the same. But just to let you know, if you're going through that right now, seasons of just being by yourself, and God is just working on you, and, you know, knowing that those people that you was around was never for you, and they were never with you, they was always against you, but like deceiving you and just being deceptive. You had to go through that to see that those people was not the ones that's going to get you to the level that God need to get you to. Now, when you're going through what you're going through, which is that pruning season, which is that knowing that I could do this with God, not having to have a individual next to me, or individual groups next to me to get me to that level, but to trust that God is the one who's going to open the doors, open people's hearts to bring me to that next level that I need to get on based on the gifts that he given you. God is the one who orchestrates. God is the one who softens hearts. God is the one who opens eyes to see who you are. Okay? Not the people that you think that you got to get in contact with to get this and get that. Nah, it's when you have no way to go, that's when you have to place your burdens down on God's hands, God's feet, and write the vision down, make it plain, and know that God is going to direct your steps. And understand that if it doesn't work out the way that you wanted to work out, or go the way that you thought it was going to go, just know that God got a bigger way. bigger than the way that you cannot even explain. You can't explain how you even got there, but you know that you're there. And it's way better than what you thought that it was going to be. Okay? So that's the process, though. You got to go through the process with God. Like, you can't do that or have that favor on your life when you don't got God. Okay? That's the difference. Having favor on your life, knowing that everything that you touch will prosper because you follow the instructions of God. That's the difference. God's children, that's God's children. Following the instructions of God. Everything that you touch will prosper. Versus, not God's children. You just, following who you can follow. Scheming who you can scheme. And then you still mentally messed up. You understand? You don't know how to fight that spiritual warfare. You know nothing about spiritual warfare. You just think that, okay, let me just keep drinking. Let me keep just smoking. Let me just keep having sex. Let me just keep scheming until I can get to the top. But all in all, you're just falling, and you're becoming spiritually dead. Okay? So that's what the Israelites had to go through. Maybe not in that sense, but they had to go through whatever they had to go through in their generation that was destruction for them, for God to open their eyes to know who he is and how he's the provider, how he's the protector, how he's the father, how he's the one who put his hands in things to make things grow in your life. Okay? Not the idols that you think that is prosperous because that's what you see. Nah, it's God. And faith comes by the hearing of the word of the Lord. Faith is the evidence of things that's unseen. Okay? So that is all, y'all. And yeah. When I get done, talking or whatever, it just stops. Like my mind just stops and goes blank. So I just know, all right. Yeah. All right, y'all. So I will see y'all. I will see y'all next time. I just be like, okay, maybe I can get a better ending. Like maybe my mind can talk about a good ending. Well, it's not my mind, but anyways. But yeah, y'all. So that is it. That is all. I will see you guys next time.